Game 1 is in the books. We had a lot of questions we wanted answered in the playoffs, and now it feels like, Paul, the goalposts keep moving. Some questions kind of got answered, and it's almost like, well, I need to see more now. So let's get into that and so much more from Game 1. Take a little look ahead to Game number 2. Paul Hudrick, at Paul Hudrick on Twitter from 97.3ESPN.com. All right, so we wanted to see if Tobias Harris was going to be the same Tobias Harris in the playoffs. I think we got our answer, but some people now are saying, well, it's only Washington. I want to see him do it against Brooklyn now.
Well, that's how it's going to be, Mike. I mean, the goalposts are going to keep moving for these guys. And to a certain extent, I get it, because Tobias Harris was brilliant on Sunday. Like, there's no two ways to slice it. He was brilliant, but that Washington defense is not good. They had, there's little resistance at the rim. Daniel Gafford's really the only guy that's a shot blocker that they have. And Tobias just had his way. Whether it was Achimura, whether it was him getting switched on, the Washington's going to keep going to that small lineup when they're going to switch everything. So that's going to give Tobias opportunities to kind of bury some of those guys. And listen, I think Tobias is going to get those opportunities against a lot of other teams too, because, most teams are going to want to use their best defenders on Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. So that's going to be some opportunities for Tobias Harris to feast. And also, I'm sure we're going to get into it, but give Ben Simmons credit for finding Tobias Harris and setting up a lot of those mismatches.
Oh, you mean Ben didn't play? You mean Ben didn't have the worst game of his career yesterday?
Let me think. 15 assists, 15 rebounds, 15 assists, the second most in franchise history in a playoff game behind Allen Iverson and Mo Cheeks. And I think he's the only second Sixer ever to have 15 rebounds and 15 assists in a playoff game. Some other guy named Wilt Chamberlain was the only other Sixer to do that. So, yeah, I would say he wasn't bad yesterday, Mike.
Didn't score enough, Paul. Didn't score enough. I will say the 0 for 6 from the line, that we can get into. But
agreed.
Just kind of, you were there yesterday, right?
Yes.
You were there, right? So kind of give us I don't feel – it's hard to explain this when you're talking on the radio, but when you're there and you can see – I feel like the patience of Ben is the underappreciated part. Like, people see that he gives up the dribble and he stops or he does this. But that, to me, is the beauty of it. Sometimes it's the patience that he looks like the play is over and he's got himself caught, but he's almost baiting you like, come on, man. And I said it's like a quarterback running the option. And as soon as that defensive end comes towards me, boom, I'm going to kick it out. But you just said, how many times did he set up Harris? How many of the 6 threes that Green and Curry make are because of him? How many times did Joel Embiid get the ball in the spot that allows him to basically have his way? I feel like those are just unquantifiable when you're watching the game on television a lot.
100%. And the way you describe it, I think, to kind of add to it, is Ben Simmons understands a couple things. One, he's not meant to be the scorer of this basketball team, just flat out. That's not his role. His role is not to score. His role is to find the scorers and the shooters, because it's not his strength. His strength is not scoring the basketball. 2, he recognizes that 3 points are worth more than 2. So if he can drive to the basket, drag a defender into the paint with him, that's leaving somebody open on the perimeter for a 3, and he is smart enough and he has the vision to find those guys on the perimeter. And, to your point, too, like, it's not like some of these assists aren't just like, oh, here you go. Here's an assist for an easy jump shot. A lot of them are he creates by getting into the paint and then dishing out. 2 of those assists yesterday, to me, are plays that, how many guys in the league can even make them, let alone guys at 6'10" that are also elite defenders? That one pass to George Hill, that was like a slant pattern. George Hill actually did a great job catching it and going up. But to make that bullet of a pass in that window was unbelievable. There's another play where Tobias Harris cuts back door and he threads a bounce pass that's like, again, like, how many guys in the league would even attempt to make that pass, let alone can do it and execute it? So I do think there is a lack of appreciation sometimes for the things he does well. I understand what the frustrations are with the things he doesn't do so well. Like you said, the 0 for 6 from the line, that can't happen. You can't not make a free throw when you take 6 of them. You got to at least go 3 for 6. Like, you had to shoot 50% from the line. Like, you got to give him something there. So I understand the frustration there. I thought he missed a couple shots that he's actually hit for this season, like that little right-handed hook he's gone to a lot. He missed a couple of those, missed a couple bunnies that he kind of hits. So, yeah, I mean, the scoring, it's just not what he's supposed to be doing. Like with this team, we talked about it all year, Mike, that formula that they have to win. And that formula does not include him scoring 20 points a game.
Right. It might have been you. Actually, I think it was Kai Carlin who asked him early about his defense. And he admitted that he was fatigued. They hadn't played for 10 days. And I think that got lost in the sauce yesterday is here's a Washington team that played Thursday night. They played Tuesday night. They were out and running. They had played, a lot of games. The Sixers didn't play for 10 days, their starters. For them to they didn't really have that rusty look to them, but I think that factored in. And Ben even said, yeah, I did a good job, but I was fatigued a little bit more. I thought that was an interesting thing because you would imagine that that's going to change as these playoffs go on, especially in this series. And for Washington to not be able to take advantage of that, I feel like their chance to steal one might be out the window.
Yeah, I thought yesterday was the Wizards' best chance to get the Sixers, like you said, a week off, resting at home. The Wizards played two playoff level intensity basketball games, including an emotional win in the last one to make sure they got into the playoffs. So they clearly were, kind of had more that edge to them in that way. But yeah, the fact that the Sixers kind of withstood that storm, I think says it's more of a credit to the Sixers than anything else. And yeah, every person that talked yesterday, Mike, highlighted the fact that they didn't play they didn't play at all for a week. Doc Rivers said he thought that was what contributed to them. They got out to a really cold shooting start. I think they were 1 for their first 11 from 3, and then the second half really turned that around. So, he contributed part of that to that. Like you said, Ben Simmons mentioned the defense. I think, too, look at Tobias. He scores 28 in the first half, only scores 9 in the second, played 38 minutes. He was out of gas. You could see it in his shots. He was coming up short on a lot of his shots in the second half that were good looks. They were just as good of the looks that he was getting in the first half, but he was leaving a lot of them short. And I think it's just fatigue from not playing an NBA game for over a week, let alone a playoff game. Yeah. So, yeah, I do think that Washington probably missed an opportunity. That was probably their best chance to get one. And I think they're going to have a really tough time getting one for the Sixers for the next week or so.
Yeah, I know. I saw no reason why and by the way, Washington hit the 3 yesterday. They shot the 3 pretty well with Bertans. Had a good game. Beal. I know a lot of the stuff out there gives Simmons credit. He did a good job on Beal. Beal still scored 30 points. But I think there's your difference is Beal and Westbrook. That's really all they got. I mean, Hachimura, nice player, maybe down the road, not ready right now. I feel like this series is what it is. But did we see the recipe for a Sixers deep run? Is that game yesterday their recipe?
It is, short of, you don't want Joel Embiid to get in foul trouble early in a game. But other than that, yeah, I mean, this is what we've kind of talked about all season is Joel Embiid is your guy. That's the focal point of the offense. He's going to get you, near 30 points a game, which to me, it was so funny. I was like looking at the box score. I'm like, he still finished with 30 points. Like, even though he was in foul trouble, barely played in the first half, he still finished with 30 because he was that good down the stretch. So you got that. You have Tobias adding that supplemental scoring. And you have Danny Green and Seth Curry making shots, and then Ben Simmons just filling in those gaps, playing elite defense, finding the open players, really getting them into their offense, finding those mismatches, pushing the pace when it's possible. And then I think what we saw yesterday too, to touch on the bench a little bit, is it's pretty clear George Hill is the guy off the bench. He is the guy that Doc Rivers is going to lean on. We didn't see that down the stretch of the regular season. That might have been on purpose because now we're clearly seeing that that's the guy rightfully that Doc Rivers is going to lean on. And that's why Daryl Morey made that trade. You saw a little bit of that and what he'll bring to the table on both ends of the floor. I thought he was quietly very good yesterday.
Yeah.
But I do think that formula is there to win. Will it work against elite teams in a best-of-7 series? We're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, Paul, talk a little bit more about the rotation. He did play 11. He said, I'm going to play guys, and he did. But only 10 from Milton. You got 7 from Maxey. Maxey got a fourth quarter run in a pretty important spot. And then the 18 minutes for Howard and Hill, and more 18 for Howard out of necessity because Embiid was in foul trouble. But any clues on the rotation from what we saw yesterday?
Some things. So I thought it was going to be 9, and I kind of think that's what Doc wanted to do. when you look at the way it all went down, as you mentioned, Dwight Howard comes in first because of Joel Embiid's foul trouble, but then it was Thibault, then it was George Hill, and then last was Shake Milton. Furkan Korkmaz doesn't come in till late in the second quarter. I think that was strictly because they were 1 of 11 from three. I think if they had been hitting the three ball, I don't think you see Korkmaz at all. You know, he comes in, he misses all three, doesn't play a second in the second half. Then the only reason Maxey gets in is because Seth Curry takes a shot to the stomach and misses the last 2 minutes of the first half. And then because he added a little spark, he had that N1 basket. I think Doc was like, all right, let me see if I can get him in there and see if he can give us a jolt. So I think he's going to want to stick to 9 guys. But as we've talked about a lot, he's not afraid to play those 11 guys. He will play any of them. You touched on the minutes and the distribution, which I think is interesting and important. Clearly, like you said, Dwight Howard only plays 18 minutes because of Joel Embiid being in foul trouble.
Yeah, Embiid only played 30 total minutes. He normally would play about 38.
Absolutely. George Hill plays 18 because he plays 18. They're going to need him to play 18. You saw him as a late game defensive sub. That's going to be his role. What I'm curious to see about is Matisse Thybulle I have a suspicion that this game might have been an outlier with Matisse Thybulle. It's because I think Dwight Howard had to play so much. And that combination of Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, and Dwight Howard is just, it's abysmal offensively. It just doesn't work. So I think part of the reason Thybulle didn't play as much as maybe we would have thought, I think he was around 15 minutes. I think it's because of that. So I do believe that we will see more. I don't know this, but I'm just guessing that we will see more of Matisse Thybulle going forward. And I think George Hill and Matisse Thybulle will be the 2 main guys. And Dwight's just going to play the minutes that Embiid doesn't, basically. And then after that, I think, mostly Shake Milton, but you're going to see a mixture of guys. Whoever Doc thinks can help them win that night.
Check out Paul's observations from the Game 1 win over at 97.3 ESPN.com, where he goes very much in depth on the playoff rotation. And also, the one issue, with the transition D, it was a little bit of an issue. They kind of tweaked it, and I would think that gets better as this goes on based on the fatigue and not playing. And I think, as you kind of said, it kind of got better as the game went on. But it was a little bit of an issue early, and it kept Washington in that game. It gave them a halftime lead.
No, 100%. And what I put the observations to is in the first half, I thought Ish Smith was actually the Wizards' best player. And partially because of that, because he really pushed the pace. He got out and he ran, and the Sixers were not ready for it. I think Joel Embiid getting in foul trouble hurt them in that regard, because I think, I thought their defense as a whole when he left the game just wasn't very good. Transition defense being the most notable thing. But I thought even in the half court, they weren't particularly great once Joel Embiid left the game. I thought they got way too much easy stuff at the rim. I do think not playing for a week, definitely a factor. And it's all a factor. It's the Sixers not playing for a week. It's the fact that that's what the Wizards do. That's their strength. That's what if they're going to beat you, that's how they're going to beat you. They're going to get out and run. And then 3, it's just flat out not being a strength of the Sixers in general. But in the second half, they were much better. I thought they were much better, especially in the fourth quarter. I thought their defense in the fourth quarter is what won them the game, really. I thought they came up with a lot of big stops. Beal went off in the third quarter, but Ben and Joel really slowed him down in the fourth. Did a really good job on the pick and roll and on his drives of really kind of corralling him and not letting him get to the basket and even really making sure he couldn't find outlets. They did an excellent job. So I think it bodes really well for the Sixers in this series, and I think they should have no issue. They really should take care of business in this series. They are clearly the better team. All the way around.
And they clearly have no answer for Joel Embiid. Even in 30 minutes, they had no answer. By the way, Embiid scored 90 points in 92 minutes against them in the regular season. He now has 120 points in 120. It's unbelievable, 122 minutes. He just absolutely has dominated them. Good to see him late, too. Hit a couple of big baskets. Who's going to get the ball late? There's Joel Embiid. There's Tobias Harris. And obviously Ben Simmons with the big day with the 15 assists. So Game 2, Wednesday night, right here on 97.3 ESPN. So you get a couple extra days off. You get today and tomorrow. So they'll have to wait till Wednesday. Paul Hudrick will be back then to preview that game. For more on the Sixers, check out @Paul Hudrick and go to 97.3ESPN.com. All right, Paul. We will talk to you Wednesday, man.
Sounds good, Mike. Take care, man.
And he, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Great stuff from Paul. And check out all of his Sixers coverage on the post-game observations over at 97.3ESPN.com.